There's a phrase I've come back to again and again in this season of my life. I fill my own cup first. From that place, I care for others. It sounds simple, but for me, it represents a shift in how I've lived most of my life. And today, I want to talk about what that means, why it matters, and how retirement has given me the space to finally understand it. Hello and welcome. If you're new here, I'm Melody. On this channel, I talk about retirement, not just the financial side, but how to actually live in this phase of life in a peaceful and meaningful way. For most of my life, I had a very clear sense of purpose. In my 20s, I created a life mission statement, and that guided me for decades to make life a little bit better for my family, friends, colleagues, and community. And I really believed in that. It wasn't just something I wrote down and forgot about. It became a quiet compass in the background of my life. When I made decisions, I came back to it. When I thought about my career, I came back to it then too. And when I showed up for people, I came back to it again. And I lived that. I showed up, I contributed. I tried to make things better whenever I could. Sometimes that looked like being the reliable one, the person others could count on. Sometimes it was just small everyday things, listening, helping, smoothing things over, making life a little easier for someone else. And in many ways, that mission served me well. It shaped my career. It shaped my relationships. It gave my life a strong sense of meaning and direction. And I want to be clear about that. I don't regret it most of the time. There is something very meaningful about contributing to the people and the world around you. But there was something in that statement that I didn't fully understand at the time. Something unspoken, because the way I had lived it slowly and over time became to make life a little bit better for others, even when it cost me. I didn't write those words. I didn't consciously choose that version, but it showed up in my behavior. It showed up in the way I made decisions. I would push through exhaustion because someone was counting on me. I would ignore what my body was telling me because something else felt more important. I would say yes when I probably should have said no. And I didn't question it because it felt right. It felt responsible and generous. It felt like who I was supposed to be. But over time, that pattern has a cost, and it's a quiet cost. It doesn't show up all at once. It shows up as a kind of low-level depletion where you're always giving a little more than you're restoring. And I don't think I'm alone in that, especially for women, especially for caregivers, especially for people who take pride in being dependable. That pattern can run very deep. It can become so normal that you don't even see it until one day you have the space to step back and really look at it. When I retired, I didn't just step away from work. I stepped into space. And space has a way of revealing things. At first, it can feel uncomfortable because for so many years, life had structure. There were expectations, there were deadlines, there were clear ways to measure whether I was doing enough. And then suddenly, the structure was gone. There was no one telling me what needed to be done at work. No external pressure guiding my time. And without that constant motion and the deadlines, I started to notice things I hadn't really had time to notice before. I started to notice how I felt, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I started to ask myself, how do I actually want to live? What do I want my days to feel like? What actually matters to me now in this stage of life? Because most importantly, what beliefs am I carrying that made sense before, but might not serve me anymore? Many of these beliefs were formed decades ago, in a different season of life. They were formed in a different context, and I had never really stopped to question them. My retirement gave me that opportunity. It didn't happen all at once. It happened gradually, quietly, in small moments. Those moments where I wasn't rushing to the next thing. Those moments where I could just sit and think and notice. And in that space, this idea of filling my own cup first, it started to come into focus. Not as something selfish, not as something optional, but as something necessary, because I began to see a pattern. If I didn't take care of myself intentionally, no one else was going to do that for me. And more importantly, if I didn't take care of myself, if I didn't have the energy or the presence or the capacity to show up in the way I wanted to for the people I care about. So this wasn't just about doing less. It wasn't about withdrawing from the world. It was about rebalancing. It was about creating a life that I could actually sustain, where giving and receiving were both allowed. And that was a shift. It was a quiet one, but it was still a very important one. Recently, I had a very real opportunity to live this out. It wasn't theoretical, and it wasn't something I could think about from a distance. It was something I actually had to practice, and I practiced it in real time. I was dealing with a pinched nerve in my neck, and if you've ever experienced something like that, you know it's not just uncomfortable. It affects everything. How you move, how you sleep, even how you think and focus. And then on top of that, I got sick more than once. So it was just one thing. It wasn't just one thing. It was weeks of not feeling well, physically drained and limited in what I could do. And during that time, I had a choice. I could push through. I could keep my commitments. I could show up no matter what. I could tell myself, it's not that bad. I can handle it. Which is exactly what the old me would have done, because that was my pattern. It was what I had practiced for years. Or I could stop, rest, cancel things, just take care of myself. I could listen to what my body was telling me instead of ignoring it. And I could also listen to the people who were trying to help me. My doctor, my physical therapist, people who were very clearly saying, you need to slow down. You need to give this time to heal. You need to take care of yourself right now. And that's what I chose to do. Not perfectly. I still had moments where I felt that pull to do more. But I was trying to be intentional about it. I stepped back from my volunteer work. I scaled back my commitments. I allowed my days to be quieter, slower, more focused on healing. I spent a lot of time resting. During the exercise my physical therapist gave me, I followed through on what my doctor recommended. I paid attention to what actually helped and what didn't. And yes, I missed my usual activities. I missed my people. I missed the routine. I missed being productive. But something deeper shifted. I started to see that pushing through isn't always strength. Sometimes it's just habit. And I realized that taking care of myself, really taking care of myself, it's not a failure of responsibility. It wasn't being lazy or indulgent. It was an act of wisdom. And in a quiet way, it reinforced everything I had been starting to learn. That filling my own cup first isn't just a nice idea. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary. So what does that actually look like in my daily life now? Because this can sound like a nice idea, but what does it really mean day to day? For me, it's not dramatic. It's not complicated. And it's not about completely reinventing my life. But it is intentional. It's a series of small choices made over and over again. It looks like taking my time in the morning, savoring both the quiet and a cup of coffee instead of rushing into the day. I now let my mornings unfold a little more gently. It looks like getting enough rest, even taking afternoon naps, and honoring when my body needs more. Not pushing through fatigue just because I think I should be doing something, but recognizing that rest is a part of a healthy, well-lived life. It looks like going for walks in my neighborhood, not just to check a box for exercise, but because it feels good to move, to get outside, to notice the air, the light, and the flowers in my neighbors' front yards. It looks like spending time in my garden, paying attention to the rhythm of the seasons. There is something very grounding about that. It slows you down in a good way. It looks like practicing my creative hobbies and allowing myself to get into that flow state. Not because it's productive in the traditional sense, but because it brings me a sense of satisfaction and calm. It looks like making a home that feels peaceful and comforting, a place where I can actually want to spend time, where I can relax and feel at ease. And it looks like letting quiet moments exist without needing to fill them. That one has been surprisingly important. For a long time, I always felt like I needed to be doing something all the time. Now I'm learning just to be. These are small things. None of them on their own seem particularly important, but together, they change how my days feel. They create a sense of steadiness, of enoughness. Is that a word? They fill the cup. And what I've noticed is this. Filling my own cup hasn't made me care less about others. If anything, it's done the opposite. It allows me to care better. Because now when I spend time with my granddaughters, I'm truly there. I'm not thinking about everything else I need to do. I'm not distracted or depleted. I can be truly present with them. When I volunteer, I'm not running on empty. I'm not showing up out of obligation. I'm showing up with energy, with warmth, with a willingness to engage. And that feels very different. It feels lighter. It feels more authentic. And maybe most importantly, it feels sustainable. It feels like something I can continue doing, not just for a short period of time, but for the long term. And that to me is the real shift. It's not about doing less. It's about creating a way of living that actually supports both myself and the people I care about. When I look at my life now, I can see the contrast much more clearly. My old mission was to make life a little bit better for my family, friends, colleagues, and community. And I still believe there is something very good and very meaningful in that. That part of me has not gone away, but the way I lived that mission, it looked like this: give, show up, push through, keep going, even when it costs me, even when I was tired, even when something in me was saying, this is too much. I didn't think of it as a problem. I thought of it as being reliable, being responsible, and being a good person, and doing what needed to be done. But what I didn't see at the time was how much of myself I was setting aside in the process. Now my mission is different. Not completely different, but more complete, more balanced. Now it's this: I fill my own cup first, and from that place, I care for others. And what I've learned is that the order really matters, because that one change, it shifted everything. Now I rest when I need to, not as a last resort, but as something that's built into how I live. I listen to my body, and I take it seriously when something feels off. I allow myself to have limits. I don't assume that I should always be able to do more. And that has been a big change, because for a long time my identity was tied to being capable, to being dependable, to being the person who could always handle one more thing. Now, I still value those qualities, but I no longer allow it to come at the expense of my own well-being. And from that place, I can still give. I can still show up, and I can still care deeply about the people in my life. That hasn't changed. But the way it feels, that has changed. There's more ease. There's more presence and less pressure. And maybe the most important part is this: I'm no longer disappearing in the process. And that makes everything I give more genuine and sustainable. Retirement gives you something different from your life before. It gives you the space to step back and look at your life from a different perspective. Not just what you are doing, but why you are doing it. It gives you the opportunity to re-examine beliefs that you may have carried for decades. Beliefs that were formed in a different stage of life, in a different set of responsibilities. For me, one of those beliefs was, I should put others first. And again, there's something good in that. Maybe. Caring about other people does matter. Showing up for the people in your life matters. But what I've come to understand is that this belief, as I was living it, it was so incomplete. Because if you are always pouring out, eventually there's nothing left. And when that happens, you are no longer giving from a place of strength. You are giving from depletion, from obligation. And over time, that is just not sustainable. What I'm learning now is that caring for yourself, it's not selfish. It's foundational. It's what allows everything else to exist in a healthy way. It's what allows you to show up with presence, with energy, and with genuine care. Not just for a short period of time, but for the long term. This is still a work in progress for me. There are still moments where I feel that pull to do more and to give more and to overrule my body when it says it needs rest. But now I notice it and I come back to this. I fill my own cup first. From that place, I care for others. That is the shift. And it's such a meaningful one. I would like to leave you with a couple of questions to think about. What is one way you could take better care of yourself this week without the guilt? And is there a belief that you've carried for years that might be time to be re-examined? If this resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you are exploring what retirement really means beyond the numbers, you are in the right place. I'll see you in the next video.